Good morning. It's Friday. BJ's Esoteric Musings. I am BJ, and I wanted to come back after such a crazy week of tech issues. Um, as you know, my what was supposed to be just one video on animal communication ended up choppy in three parts. And I had, by the end, I had redone so many different parts of it that I was like, I'm not sure if I got everything in. I know I talked a lot about my animals and their personalities, but I don't know how much of the communication I actually got to cover in that. So I just wanted to pop back in and share a little bit more of a wrap up for you guys to finish off the week. And the interesting things continue. Suddenly I was in my looking at the different channels that I follow and subscribe to, and I went in there to check on something uh, because I'd had notification earlier in the day of, I think it was something that the Cool Crone and Cleo and a few others were going to be involved in a collaboration. My whole entire listing of those that I follow was just dumped. It was totally gone. I had to recreate it. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to hopefully keep this short and make sure this gets loaded today. So, in showing you pictures of the babies, I didn't get to show you Sugar and Pee Wee. I forgot to grab a couple of photos of them. So, this is Sugar, the white 9-year-old pit bull that came to us in 2016. And was it 20? Yeah, 2016. And then this is Pee Wee, aka the one we call Mr. Mister. And he is a much younger boy here. He's 9 years old, and he's quite an old gentleman now. But I want you to really look at those eyes and the intensity of those eyes. This little guy, there's a lot going on with him, and I'm going to get into some of that. So, I just quickly made some notes here for highlights that I don't want to forget. So if you see me looking down and whatever, that's what I'm doing. So now, as I said, when we got Sugar and Mr., Walter had no personal experience with pit bulls. And he was discovering very quickly what a sweet girl Sugar was and why she was named Sugar. And it wasn't just because she was a white dog. In fact, she had a little brown heart on her one ear, her left ear, that was just adorable. And that's what she was just a loving little creature. But I had kept telling him that pit bulls were bred, they used to call them nursery dogs. And he said, I can't imagine anyone feeling comfortable with letting them have their children around pit bulls. And I said, well, I did. And mine were raised with pit bull litters, never had a problem. And so, as I mentioned, my son and his family were living with us for the first few years we lived in this house. And grandson Bryce, the youngest one, was born while they were still living here in this home. And I was down in Medford rehabbing my sister after her knee surgery. So I was down there about 3 weeks, and Walter was up here with the dogs and taking care of things. And I get this text from him. Bryce is finally home from the hospital, and oh my God, he said, I have never seen such an outpouring of love. And so I said, this sounds like a good story. You better call me and tell me what's going on. And he said, well, he said, the kids got home with the baby. And he said, one of the first things Keith did was walk over, because by this point we did have the gate up between the house, parts of the house. And Sugar was on our side. So he brought her to introduce her to the baby, and his wife was standing behind him pretty pensive from the way Walter described it. She was a little nervous because Keith just instinctively leaned right over the gate with that baby in his arms and got down real low where Sugar could sniff him. And Walter said, oh my God, she got one sniff of that baby and it was instant love. He said nothing but love was pouring out of that dog, and she just wanted to crawl right over that gate and just love on him. And uh, I guess my daughter-in-law kept going, Keith, are you sure that's okay? Don't let him get too close. And he says, don't you worry about it. She's not going to hurt this baby. And Pee Wee, who was not all that interested in children, especially the older ones, because they were probably like at that point they were 8 and 9 or 9 and 10, and they were more rambunctious. And so he used to give them a wide berth. But we have a number of photos of him curled up with the baby sleeping on the couch in his little blanket, and here would be Mr. right next to him, snuggled up, keeping him warm and himself warm. But even he took to having a baby in the house. They both thought that was pretty awesome. And in the other videos, I know I mentioned that it took Walter a while to finally decide he was really communicating with Mr. And when he finally did hear his voice firsthand from him, he quickly realized that he had been communicating with Mr. all along. Mr. was putting his mind, funneling it through Sugar. So no wonder why everybody thought Sugar was the brains of the outfit and Mr. was the sidekick. And I joked and laughed and I said, oh no, I always knew that was a Master Blaster, if anybody is familiar with the Mad Max movies. Master Blaster, the blaster was the big hulking, simple-minded one, and Master was the dwarf that actually, and that's probably not kosher, so don't hold that against me, that naming. But he was the brains of the outfit, and Mr. has always really been the brains of the outfit. And so once Mr. trusted Walter enough to communicate directly to him, we started getting all kinds of, he's a bit of a tattletale, we discovered. As I said, for a while we were taking trips down to Medford monthly so we could have a card game weekend with my dad and my sister. It was our way of kind of monitoring Dad and how his cognitive abilities were going, because he was in his 90s at this point. And so we would go down once a month to play cards. And one of our visits down there, Walter's sitting there, all of a sudden he pops up and he goes, uh-oh. I said, what? And he goes, oh, I just heard from Pee Wee. We were still calling him Pee Wee then. I said, oh, what's up? And he says, well, he's telling me he has to go to the bathroom and he can't because the doggy door is closed. So I said, well, call Keith. So he calls Keith. And Keith says, hey, what's going on? And he tells him, well, I'm getting word from the dog that he needs to go out, but he can't because the doggy door is closed. And Keith goes, oh, man, that's right. I went ahead and closed it last night at bedtime, and I haven't opened it up yet. I'll go take care of that right now. And so, sure enough, the message came through, and it was accurate, and so he took care of that. Another time, I'm trying to think. Let's see, not monkey paws. Okay. I think that was all I had on Mr., except for my interactions with him. After we first got him, he was always, like I say, close to the vest, very cautious. But one day, he and I were together in the family room, and I just picked him up, rolled him on his back, and snuggled him up like a baby. And I said, well, if you and I are family now, we got to get to know each other, young man. And so I instantly saw something in the expression in his eyes that said, don't you recognize me? And as I held him, I realized that whenever I would hold Mr. after that I could feel instantly calm, almost relaxed enough to where I'd want to take a nap, and I'm not really a napper, but he would get me in that kind of Zen state. And that's the way a lot of times my dog Sooner caused me to feel. And when I had to have Sooner put down, I whispered in his ear, I'm not telling you goodbye because I need you to come back to me, but please do so in a smaller body, because I'll be older and you're a lot to handle at this size. So please come back to me. And I became very confident that Mr. is a reflection of Sooner. He carries a lot of Sooner's energy. And he very much is a quiet protector, but he's always, I mean, you saw those eyes in that photo. There's nothing that gets by that little guy. He's always on alert, and that's the way Sooner was. And he gives me that vibe. And when I looked at him one day and I was really examining his coat, I was like, you even have the same markings that Sooner did. Sooner just had a little bit of white on his neck, just a little skiff on his chest, and then 2 of his back toes on the left side were white. That's it. That is exactly Mr.'s markings. He has exactly those same markings. So that's my Sooner and Mr. story of how those two came about. I can tell you that Shadow, the mama dog, I began to discover over time, as I lost various dogs, that I would see Shadow in the house periodically for about 2 weeks before the advent of losing a dog. And I think she is just the mommy of all the dogs that I have had since. She still carries that maternal role, and it's her way of coming in, preparing me, because Spirit is very good when I'm going to have a shock. It usually gives me a heads up whether I really want to hear it or not, or totally process it in the moment. But they're always very good to say, brace yourself, something's coming, you're not going to like it, but it's got to be. And I always start paying attention, and then I'm like, darn it, but I have time to wrestle with everything before the event happens. And then I can just say, okay, they warned me, this must be what they were warning me about. But Shadow is my warning for the passing of my animals. And I see her as just, quite interestingly, a dark shadow. A bit smaller than what she was in her physical life, but I'll just go to step or turn and then suddenly be aware that, oh, there's something on the floor, and I look down and it dissipates. And I'm like, hi, Shadow. So I've learned. I almost tripped on her one night getting up to do my little Mother Nature run about 4 a.m. And as I got towards the bathroom, right there in the divider of the wall between our bathroom and our office space, there was this shadow. And I literally just about put my foot right through her, and I was like, oh. And then I was like, uh-oh, that was Shadow. And that was about 2 weeks before Sugar left us. So luckily she hasn't shown up yet. I knock wood for Mr. because even though we know his time is limited, he's almost 18, we'd still like to have him around for a while yet. So now another thing with animals, crows. I think I mentioned about crows, and I don't know if I know I told the story about the crows alerting me about what was happening with Mimsy, but in all the different edits and things that got cut out, I don't know if I finished wrapping that story. But that day she was out and been out longer than usual, and I heard the crows. I heard them out in the trees, and I thought, uh-oh, something's going on in the neighborhood, because crows have always alerted me. But I didn't look any further. I didn't attribute it to Mimsy. And so it wasn't until we went out to look for her and found that she had had a circle of life moment, and it had been a big hawk. And the crows were still, later we came in the house, and that hawk, we had buried her and everything. The hawk came back, I think, to get the rest of her, or to pull her apart and get more of her. And the crows just went nuts, and they chased that hawk right over into our neighbor's tree. And we went out to go see what all the commotion was about. And here was this huge hawk, and I kid you not, sitting on one of their big branches on their huge tree. And he was every bit like that big. And we're like, yeah, he could snap a chicken's neck pretty darn quick. And the crows ran him off. They knew how upset I was about Mimsy. And there was another instance. This has been some years ago now, but we were visiting a friend of ours down in Murphy's, the town of Murphy's, which is, if you know uh, the gold story of Northern California above Sacramento there, Placerville, all of that. Murphy's is up in that gold country. It's a small town up there. And we had gone up to visit, and we were staying at the condo that our friend's boss owned, and she gave us a great nightly rate to go ahead and rent it for the weekend we were there. Well, we'd been having a busy day, and a friend's husband was out grilling on the deck, and my husband was out visiting with him. And I thought, oh, it was a great opportunity for me to get in the shower. So while I was in the shower, a crow came by and was asking where I was. And my husband says, well, she's in the shower right now cleaning up, but I'm her mate. So if you have a message for her, you can certainly give it to me. And he said the crow kind of was back and forth on the branch, like, should I, shouldn't I, shouldn't I, should. And all of a sudden he heard a caw from another crow that he immediately knew by the reaction of the crow he was talking to that it was his mate. And he says, oh, never mind, I'll try and catch her later, I gotta go. And he flew off. And so I never did get that darn message. I've often wondered what that crow had to tell me on that visit. But I know that by the end of that visit, our friend's husband kind of thought I was a little wackadoo, which is all right. I like to keep people guessing because I am a little wackadoo anyway, but all in the best ways, I like to say. Now, Bert, the cat, I have told you about that. This is the cat that we say is not our cat, but we now claim him as our cat. But Bert and my husband, Bert was a little skittish about men, and so it took him a bit to warm up to my Walter, but he finally did. And one night they were in the living room and apparently having quite a discussion for about 10 minutes. And I came in because Walter had been gone for a bit and it was getting close to bedtime, so I came around the corner here from the library into our living room, and I'm like, well, hey, Bert, what are you doing? And so he came and said his hellos to me, and then we let him outside for the night. And Walter, I sat down and I said, so what were you and Bert plotting for the world? And he says, no, he says, he actually was giving me quite a discussion. And I said, really? He's finally started communicating with you? And he says, yeah. He says, do you know that apparently it is common conversation among feral cats? The consensus is that they think humans are stupid. They just think we're stupid. And he said, I said, now, Bert, humans are quite smart. We invent things, we create things. Look at all the fun things that humans create that you cats enjoy, like your condos, your scratching posts. And Bert just says to him, oh, monkey paws. And he says, what do you mean monkey? That's just monkey paws. And he says, well, yeah, you have paws like monkeys, monkey paws. And I just cracked up at that. So now we, every once in a while, will crack up about somebody trying to do something, and we'll look at each other and go, yeah, monkey paws. So those are some of the stories that I had wanted to make sure that I had gotten to, and I didn't think that I had. So with that note, I'm going to call this one good. I don't see the timer on this yet, but I don't think it's gone. Oh, just under 20 minutes, which is about where I like to keep them usually, except for this week's debacle. So on that note, I am going to wish you all a wonderful weekend ahead. Here in Oregon, we're in for at least 5 days of warmer weathers. low 70s, if you can believe that at this time of year. We're just shocked, but we're loving the blue skies and going to have some warm days. So that'll be good things for getting yard work done and all that and preparing for spring. So on that note, again, I wish you all a wonderful weekend. I thank you for stopping in and watching these musings. If you find this content interesting or something that you think anyone you know would be interested in viewing, please like, share, and subscribe. Subscribership costs you nothing, but it does help build the algorithm for the channel. So on that note, I'm going to wish you all a great weekend and say bye until next time. See you next week.